Hey there, Alex Kidman with a review of sorts of a UV phone cleaning machine. And I've got to say of sorts because there's some huge caveats to this one, which I will get to shortly. But it struck me as a really important topic right now. There's been a lot of talk around UV as a cure for certain pandemics, including from certain world leaders who really should know better. He's a worrying man, that one. But before I get too political, one of these ideas and one of the things that's being constantly spread around is the idea of using ultraviolet light to clean your jewellery, your devices, and especially your phone. And I got kind of curious about this, so I ordered a sample, fairly generic machine, it's the one you can see in front of you, off the internet, to see what it could do. But first of all, I think it's really important to look at what the science says around this. So, what does the science say? Well, it's actually fairly well settled. It is actually quite well established that if you have decent quality UVC lamps shining onto a subject, you can have an effect on bacteria and viruses. It can have a disinfecting effect. This has been well known for a long, long time. However, there's some huge caveats to that. First and foremost is it's not something that is particularly safe to use on yourself. Exposure to that kind of ultraviolet is in fact quite dangerous over a prolonged period. So please don't buy one of these machines and stick your head in it thinking that it's suddenly going to make you coronavirus free. It won't. It'll just potentially do you a whole lot of damage, and that'd be kind of regrettable. Now, back to our fancy dancy machine, which actually wasn't terribly expensive. Now, there's tons of these. There's some big brand names and there's some absolute generics. This is an absolute generic. Didn't really cost me very much and is very simple. Calls itself a coating machine. Two very simple buttons for coating, which is its UV light treatment, and incense. You can put perfume in the base of it and make your jewellery smell nice or something. I don't know. I'm never really going to use that. It simply pops up with a couple of simple lights located on the sides, and if I flip it around at the back there, and that's your lot. There's not a lot of documentation, there's not a lot of information that came with this particular machine, which concerns me, because there's also a lot of hokum around this kind of stuff, and, well, I'll get to that shortly. But first of all, I'll show off what the machine can do, because the one thing I didn't expect this to do was entertain me. And it's entertaining because it's really quite chatty. And to get that happening, I'll have to plug it in, if you'll just excuse me for a second. So the plug itself is actually just standard micro USB, nothing terribly exciting there. I should point out you don't actually get an end wall plug, but any standard phone charger seems to do the trick. So, here we go.
Hello, welcome to use the multifunctional disinfection coating machine.
Why, thank you. It's so polite. It really threw me the first time it did that. And look, the process is astonishingly simple. So I have a phone here. We can see, for example, that it is functional. It is working. And I simply pop the lid up and pop it in the tray. Now, this one's reasonably large. I've seen a few different models, a few different sizes and options. Some of them will even do things like Qi wireless charging, although for the amount of time you're going to have this in there, probably not all that relevant. So we just flip the lid down and we hit the button.
Hello, the disinfection and coating process is in progress.
Now, this takes a couple of minutes, and I'm just going to talk through why I have some big problems with this machine, because, hey, it looks fine. It looks like it's doing something. There's definitely a blue light that's going on in there. Ooh. The problem is that's all I know that it's doing. And that's all that any consumer is likely to know that a machine like this is doing. You're putting an awful lot of trust and faith that it has the right kind of UV lamp in there. I have seen some suggesting that, you stick your hand in, you see whether or not it affects your skin or not. I'm not that crazy about affecting my skin in that way to find out. And the real other issue here is, of course, UV does not leave a residue. You don't suddenly end up with this film that will protect you over your phone or over any other device you might throw in here. And what that means is when it comes out, it looks exactly the same as when it went in. So you could also create this false sense of security. And I think in the current context, there's some danger with that as well. I'm not saying that this machine is doing nothing. Maybe it's doing everything. Maybe this is a junk one and the higher end ones are better. Again, I don't, and no consumer has the way to particularly test that without some fairly esoteric lab equipment. But the issue that it could create, of course, is you might think, right, well, if I just chuck my phone into this every single time I go out, I am 100% safe and clear and I don't need to worry about any other concerns. No. every other hygiene concern is still at play. UV can be part of that story if you can get something that you absolutely can trust, but you are placing an awful lot of trust in a plastic box with some lights in it, in this case. And as we'll see in a minute, the phone will come out and it will be fine. I've done a little bit of filming as well, which I might throw in here, of what it looks like on the inside. And again, it just looks like there's a light going. But then that is what it should be doing. It shouldn't really be doing anything spectacular or interesting in that way. We're nearly at the end of the cycle as well, and it shouldn't come as a shock to you that it's going to talk to me again when it's done. So I'm expecting to be interrupted any minute now. Now, if you do want these machines, they're all over the internet. As I said, there are some brand names. This is a total generic. It was very, very cheap because I basically kind of wanted it for the purposes of comparison. But I'd certainly suggest look around, check, make sure that you are actually getting something that is worth buying. This was very, very cheap and I don't regret it. I don't have a big problem with it working or not working particularly. It's also probably a very, very good idea if you are concerned about this kind of thing to look at things like using wipes to clean your phone down properly, because the other advantage with something that actually wipes over the phone, of course, is that if there are viruses or bacteria or any other nasties on there, it will remove them because you're wiping them on the way, in the same way that you're meant to wash your hands and then rinse them, because rinsing them takes all that bacteria, any viral loads that you might be carrying, and sends them all the way down the sink.
Disinfection coating process completed.
And there we have it. It's done. And now my phone is theoretically UV coated. And look, it still works and it's still fine, but that's all I can say for it. And that's why I said at the outset that this was sort of a review and sort of not a review, because I can't say, and most consumers can't say, whether or not these things, specific instances of these can work. Yes, UV can have a role to play in viral eradication on surfaces, not on human beings. Does that mean that every single one advertised online is reliable and trustworthy? No, sadly, it doesn't. Anyway, that's my take. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.